Alrighty lads, it is iFreeze700. We are back with some Warhammer lore. This time I can't even say fantasy or 40k or Age of Sigmar because this guy is literally in all of them. I'm not joking. If you ever thought about, what Warhammer character could be the main protagonist or antagonist in this case, it would probably be Bel'Akor. And I'm actually very fascinated with Bel'Akor because he seems like a character that we would all be kind of drawn into from his mystery and his mysterious origins, but at the same time we would all be bored with because he's just so damn powerful. It's a lot like when you play Skyrim or Oblivion or any role-playing game like Fallout, where at first you're like, this character is very unique and interesting, but once you level up your character to a point where you're just a god, you get bored and you create a new character. This is where Bel'Akor is. Bel'Akor is that crazy good that he's kind of boring. So, let's begin. What is Bel'Akor? The first damned. So Bel'Akor actually exists in everything. He exists in fantasy, he exists in Age of Sigmar, he exists in 40k. And as such, his rules are actually the same in all the genres. He has the same weapons, and he pretty much talks the same and acts the same throughout all of it. He is extremely weird. So you see, he is the first demon to have ever been created, the first mortal to ascend. This makes him, of course, the most powerful, as he was given the most amount of strength from all the Chaos Gods. And I should take this time to correct myself. By demon, I mean demon prince. You see, Chaos Gods still have their bloodletters, their blue horrors, all that nasty jazz. He's the first demon prince, the first mortal to turn. So whatever species he was is long gone in history. We don't know anything about what race he comes from, what history lied before him, how long ago it was that he became a demon. It's unknown. And it's kind of interesting too because a lot of the times people think of the warp as just a reflection of the real space, a mirror of reality. Well, the thing is that the warp is timeless. So, this is where it gets a little confusing with Warhammer 40k in general, is that 40k, Slaanesh is actually not that old. Not that old at all. She was born when the Eldar Empire fell, which was just, a few 10,000, 20,000 years before Warhammer 40k. So Slaanesh isn't that old, yet Bel'Akor was there before all the other demon princes. So, and the Chaos Gods have existed for a very long time, like millions of years. So when it comes to all four of the Chaos Gods, you may think that's a little bit of a lore conflict. Not really. You have to remember that the warp does not abide by our laws of reality, and time does not flow the same. In fact, time could go backwards in the warp. So it is totally possible that Slaanesh has always existed, but was just waiting her official quote-unquote birth with the fall of the Eldar Empire. So, Bel'Akor represents all four of the gods. He has magic like Tzeentch, and he's arguably stronger with magic than most of his followers. He represents the blood slaughter, the toughness, the anger of Khorne. And you can see in his martial prowess, he's really fucking deadly in combat. He represents the enduring, the toughness, the interesting scheming and plaguing of civilizations and decaying of its societies of Nurgle. And he shows extreme pleasure just with Slaanesh, as he has stated himself that he has planted his own offspring throughout the world in Warhammer Fantasy. So, he is the embodiment of every god. Bel'Akor is the embodiment of chaos in general, though, as even though when he was the only demon prince to exist, the only agent of chaos, he was still just doing his own thing like he is now, except under different circumstances. Back then, when he was the only demon prince, the Chaos Gods were fighting to give him favors so that way he could help them. They would go, oh, if you help me, I'll make you have wings. Oh, if you fight for me, I'll give you this crown. Stuff like that. But Eventually, the demons got sick of his shit, and they said, why don't we create our own demon princes? Why don't we just do that? That's way better. And they started doing that. But the thing is that chaos gods are like a slice of pizza. There is only so much pizza, no matter how many slices you cut out of it. And the more and more slices you cut out of it, the smaller those slices are going to be of pizza. Still the same pizza. And this is where Bel'Akor fits in. At first, he was almighty. He was essentially a god. Dude was amazingly overwhelmed with power since he was the only demon prince and had all the powers of every god at his disposal. But once more demon princes started to be created, they started taking powers from those gods, weakening Bel'Akor in the process. Now, to this day, no matter how many demon princes are made, Bel'Akor will always be the strongest. That's a permanent. But he does get very pissed, very greedy, and outright a little obnoxious when it comes to finding other chaos demon princes and chaos lords. He'll full on disregard their existence. He'll even sabotage them. In 40k, he tries to sabotage Abaddon the Despoiler. In Warhammer Fantasy, he outright belittles Archaon the Everchosen, telling them how he's useless and that Archaon would not exist without him at all. This is, of course, a very interesting character, but he is a little boring, as I've said. He is just ridiculously powerful. If anything, the only way that I've ever seen Bel'Akor get fucked in the books and everything like that is usually due to some sort of sorceress trap, or when he is backstabbed by multiple Chaos Lords. I personally like the Warhammer 40k version a bit more, but Warhammer Fantasy does give us a bit of insight into his magical capabilities. In Fantasy, he is a master of the lore of shadows. In 40k, he's just a really powerful caster. They don't really specify too much on his magical capabilities. But he wields this very unique blade, known as the Blade of Shadows. And this blade is very unique and very awesome because it just cleaves through armor of any type. But what it does is it constantly changes form from solid physical blade to mist and shadow. So he can cleave through your shield because his blade will turn into shadow as it passes through, but then solidify into an actual blade as he cleaves it through your intestines. There is also, of course, the fact that his magic also protects him. He also has a lot of ward save. He's actually got like 6+ invulnerability. He's kind of a crazy character indeed. Now, there is something interesting with this guy that I like to talk about a little bit before I end this video here. Bel'Akor is going to be one of these characters that I'm going to have to make several videos on because he's just got so much lore to him. It's very hard for me to do in one video. But before I leave you here, let's just talk a bit about his dark, mysterious origins. You see, we don't know too much about him, and this is where I like 40k the most, is that we get to see more of his dark past and his weird, unknown origins. But there's been many archaeological digs that have discovered ruined civilizations that span the entire galaxy. Some of them span just tiny sectors of the galaxy. But they all seem to have the same reoccurring theme of worshipping one winged being as some sort of god. And when worshipping this being, their empire would grow, but then immediately fall into just skeletons, ruins of just amazing proportions. And every one of these civilizations would dedicate a lot of their own people, their own sacrifices, their own psychers, directly dedicated to the worship of their king, their godlike emperor, which would be Bel'Akor. Now, why would Bel'Akor want to be worshipped as a god is very interesting indeed. To me, my personal opinion, I think Bel'Akor really is trying to become a god. I think it's a lot like Hashut from Warhammer Fantasy, where he is technically an incarnation of Khorne. He's a demon of Khorne, but he did kind of become so powerful he could have became his own little minor god, but he didn't, unfortunately. And this is where I think Bel'Akor stands. He is so upset by losing a lot of power to the Chaos Gods because they want to keep bickering with each other instead of supporting him, even though he has been a very shitty servant who's always been after his own goals and whatever he finds enjoyable rather than actually helping Chaos achieve their goals. But I do think that's what he's trying to do, is say, fuck these guys, I'm going to become my own thing. I'm going to take their power away and become the new 5th Chaos God. Maybe even become the God of Malice. After all, he does bear a lot of striking similarities to the old retcon lore, Malice. But I do think that's where Bel'Akor is standing, is that he's constantly working beneath the scenes, trying to somehow take over civilizations and make them grow his own power by just constantly praising him as a god. But unfortunately, these kingdoms keep dying over and over again to mysterious reasons. Maybe he's sacrificing these kingdoms, just having them do a mass suicide at the same time as like some sort of grand ritual for his power, but he does it too early. Who knows why? Maybe these empires are all dying because of the Chaos Gods fucking with them. Who knows? But I do know that Bel'Akor is way too powerful. He's way, way, way too powerful. He can command legions at any time that he feels like. He could just go up to a Khorne greater demon and just kill him for no reason and then just walk away. There is nothing stopping this guy from doing anything that he wants to do. Now, as far as how is that boring, because I said in the video this is a little boring, it's because of that. He's too powerful. He could do whatever the fuck he wants. So if you're ever to roleplay as Bel'Akor, what is there to do? He's already ruled galactic spanning empires. He's already destroyed thousands of countless empires. He's already crushed millions of would-be champions of chaos. And he's always massacred hundreds of would-be demon princes of various chaos gods. There's nothing left that could really challenge this guy. And this is the thing, is that he's so ancient, the Grey Knights don't know anything about him. Other gods like the Lady of the Lake stood no chance against him. Like, where do you go from there? There's no more growth in him. He's maxed out. He's a fucking god. There's nothing that could ever stop this guy. Of course, within reasonable limitations. Like, if he was to ever fight the entire universe, he'd probably get his ass kicked, then reincarnate, get his ass kicked again, reincarnate. But that's just it. He's immortal. He's existed for millions of years. Getting his ass kicked once is a very tough job. He can cleave Bane blades with no issue. He can destroy the most staunchest of dwarf fortresses. Not an issue. But the issue is that once he's dead, he's just going to come back. He's already achieved his maximum potential that no one else can ever hope to reach. So where do you go from there? Well, for next time, we're going to talk about his stories and how he has interacted with other characters. But for now, I'll just leave you with that. That little pondering question. What else could be done with Bel'Akor that would actually be interesting? Not a whole lot, in my opinion. I think he's pretty much done. He's just a really cool unit to put in your armies, but that's about it. His lore should honestly just be kind of done. Well, see you guys next time.